What a bullet! Scott Arfield! He's been threatening that recently, and all the Burnley players run to the Darwin end.
Burnley win the next ball. It's Rory now. On the outside, decent.
Barnes! He's got it! Ashley Barnes with it! What a cross from Rory! And there was Ashley Barnes! And Burnley leading the derby.
Knocks it quickly, finds Benson in space at the byline. Can Burnley get a goal here? Back for Brownell, saved by the keeper.
Burnley won it to the end. That is magnificent. They deserve that.
On it by Paul Teller, on for a hat-trick.
He's got it. Hat-trick for Nathan Teller. Oh, he's on fire at the minute. 3-0 Burnley. It's Nathan Teller's day.
And Burnley are 3 up here. Fantastic derby. Here's Benson, can he go on the outside? Comes inside, have a shot.
Oh, what a goal. Manuel Benson once more. That is top class. Burnley have done it. Fantastic. Clarets deserve the championship title. They've been the best side throughout the campaign. Burnley have won the second tier. What a fantastic achievement. The players have been magnificent.
Yes, hello everybody and welcome along to the latest episode of the Turfcast podcast pre-game show with me, Joe Redmond, ahead of this weekend's game against Fulham down in that there London at Craven Cottage, where we take on, as I've just said, Fulham in what's going to be a tough game, a team that is in Fulham. As you can see, we're joined by Elizabeth, who is from Fulhamish. How are you doing?
I'm all good. How are you doing?
Yeah, really good, thank you. Really good. We'll be better when hopefully we get some Christmas cheer. I'm not sure that's going to come at any point over Christmas because we've got you, then Liverpool, then Villa. But we'll see. We'll get into all that, and I'm sure we can discuss how depressed we all are on any full-time shows where it's just a group of Burnley fans who are all currently depressed. But before we get started, I just want to remind you all that the Turfcast podcast pre-game show is sponsored by Greene King Sport. As we hit December, it is the season for festive football. So what will be the best way to watch it on TV? Down at your local Greene King Sports pub, of course. After all, Christmas is a time for catch-up with friends, old and new. So get your... do that again. So get your team down to the local for some refreshing pies, delicious food, and live action for every Christmas cracker. Every single fixture from TNT, Sky, and Amazon is live at Greene King Sport. That means wall-to-wall action on their huge HD screens. So head to your local Greene King and watch every winning goal, top bins volleyed, dodgy VAR decision in an atmosphere worth sharing. And please remember to download the Greene King Sport app, as you will receive 10% off drinks every single time that there is sport on the telly. That's the first time I've actually messed that ad read up, and I've been doing it all season, so I'll take that. I think that's quite good. But Elizabeth, obviously, as Burnley fans, we're all a bit down in the dumps. Defeats every single week. Second bottom of the Premier League, joint bottom. But for you guys, you're doing quite well. Just getting the league table up now, sitting pretty in 11th. A lot of people had not had you for relegation, but had you down there. Honestly, even as far back as 2 weeks ago. 2-3 weeks ago, I was looking at a group of teams that we could potentially catch. Fulham was in that group, but now all of a sudden you've scored 10 goals in 2 games, properly climbed up the table, and you're well out of danger. So talk to me about your season so far.
Yeah, it's been quite a mixed season actually, but as you say, it's been really positive recently, which has meant that everyone around Fulham's in a super good mood coming into Christmas. Yeah, we struggled to score goals at the beginning of the season, bit of a slow start. And then between 2 international breaks, until mid-November, we had 4 really tricky fixtures and didn't win any of them. And it was looking really bleak. And everyone was starting to think, we're not safe. Fulham might be going down. Starting to look at the results of teams like yourselves and like Luton, like Sheffield United, and starting to get a little bit worried at times. But since then, we've come back. We scored 3 goals in all our games apart from the last one. And obviously 2 5-0 home wins back to back. Not many times that you can say that in the Premier League. So yeah, everyone's feeling really positive. I think everyone of a Fulham persuasion is looking forward to this one. I hope I'm not jinxing anything, but we're hopeful it should be a good result.
Yeah, well, I don't think many Burnley fans are predicting a win, put it that way, but that normally means it'll finish 1-1 or something like that. When you got one side ridiculously confident, one side not so confident. I do want to touch on last night, because obviously we're recording this on Wednesday. Obviously, you'll probably be listening to this on Thursday or later in the weekend. I've got nothing against Everton at all. Nothing against them. But obviously, they beat us at the weekend, and their fans was acting very strange on social media beforehand. There was fans in the home ends kicking off during the match and then acting all high and mighty afterwards on social media. So I did enjoy that last night, I'll be honest with you. So first of all, thank you. Congratulations to get him to the, what's it called these days? The Carabao Cup semi-final. But yeah, that's another aspect to that. Obviously, in a semi-final of a cup. So you must be buzzing with that as well.
Yeah, we're so excited. It's the first time we got to the League Cup semis ever in our history. Last night was the biggest game of our season so far. I think most Fulham fans would echo that sentiment. And to go through on penalties, especially against a Jordan Pickford-led penalty team, was absolutely amazing. I wasn't there, and I'm gutted I wasn't.
Yeah, I bet that was fun. One of my best memories as a Burnley fan. I think I've said it several times. My favourite ever season as a Claret was actually last season. Even though we've been in the Premier League for so long, finished 7th one year. Actually went on a, albeit very mini, Europa League tour the year after. But last year was my favourite. But one of the standout memories for me as a Burnley fan, I'll say growing up, but it's only like 12 years ago, so I'd have been in my 20s, was getting to the Carling Cup semi-final. And obviously, we beat Arsenal on the way. This is when we're a championship team as well. So we beat Arsenal on the way, we beat Chelsea on penalties. That night at Stamford Bridge is probably one of the best away days I've ever been involved in. So yeah, good luck with the competition. Have the semi-finals been drawn yet, or do they get drawn tonight? Because there's a game tonight, isn't there?
Yeah, we got either West Ham or Liverpool, Chelsea, or Middlesbrough. So,
didn't they? Yeah.
We think we think the Chelsea tie might be a little bit tasty, though.
Yeah, definitely. I kind of forget that that's a rivalry, obviously, because you didn't play each other for so long growing up when I was younger. But yeah, that one will be tasty. I wouldn't want to if I were you. Say, for example, if we got through to the FA Cup semi-final and we played Blackburn or Preston, I'd be like, I'd rather not, just in case we get beat. But yeah, good luck with that. You mentioned there some results from earlier in the season. I will just quickly go through it. So yeah, like you said, you had a bit of a slow start. You did beat Everton. I remember seeing that early on, opening day of the season. I think that was. I remember thinking, wow, Everton are in trouble, because then not long after that they were losing to the likes of Luton at home as well. Obviously they've turned the corner, but then you lost to Brentford, drew with Arsenal at Arsenal, which isn't the worst result in the world, and then got beat against City. And then you scraped past Luton, a 1-0. Obviously, I wasn't at that match. You may have been. It looks like a scrape on paper. Drew at Palace. Again, not a horrendous result. But then this is obviously the time you were on about. Obviously, a defeat against Chelsea, a win at home against Sheffield United, defeats against Tottenham, and a draw again down at Brighton. Not the worst result. But then losing against Man United, losing against Villa. And then that brings us into that little run that you've just had. So beating Wolves, losing to Liverpool, spanking Forest, spanking West Ham, and then obviously losing up at Newcastle. You've mentioned there it's kind of like in two parts your season, a slower start to then kicking on. What's changed? Why have you suddenly turned into Real Madrid?
Well, what is good news for you guys is that Raul Jimenez became a goal machine. He is suspended for this game, so he won't be facing
I did not know that.
But he was really misfiring. We were very frustrating in front of goal. And then something clicked over the November international break and he was on form. But I think the team had been playing, because we obviously had Mitrovic up until the summer and he left us in quite an acrimonious way. But we'd been playing a very specific style to suit the kind of striker he is. And he was an incredible striker for us. But it took the team a little bit of time to adjust. And it felt like over that international break, like that was the time that we were actually getting into the swing of things and seeing our adjustments. And it wasn't that the results were absolutely dreadful before that. It was just that when we were winning games, we didn't really deserve to win them. And we kind of thought it would catch up with us a little bit.
Yeah, well, obviously since then, like you say, you've really kicked on, and now you're looking up the table probably rather than down the table. Before we get into sort of like your ambitions and stuff for the season and talking about the match individually, you mentioned there earlier that the game against Everton, which took place on Tuesday night, is probably the biggest game of your season so far. Could that play into our hands a little bit? I mean, we will clutch at any straws that we can right now. So I looked on Flash Score last night because I was actually working, and the only game that I could watch was the Chelsea Newcastle game. So I was watching that, seeing that yours had gone to extra time. So I was like, oh, buzzing, Fulham have got an extra 30 minutes in the legs. And I checked and obviously it just went straight to penalties. And I was like, what? No. So I was trying to clutch at any straws. So hopefully, if the players and the manager see it as the biggest game of the season so far, will all of your focus have been on that game? And then you might get a little bit complacent on Saturday, please?
I think there's definitely potential for us being a little bit tireder on Saturday. Tuesday to Saturday isn't the tightest turnaround. It's not like Thursday to Sunday or Wednesday to Saturday. But there is a potential that we're tired. Like some of our big players did play most of the match, players like Polina and Iwobi. But we've got, at the moment, we're, touch wood, quite blessed with injuries, and we've got the capacity to rotate. I also think there's a psychological element. If we'd lost on penalties, I definitely would have been saying, like, this is the time to capitalize on, you know, we're in a bit of a bad moment. But because we won, I think everyone's going to be super up for it. The team's going to be super up for it. So we'll see.
It's one of them riding on the crest of a wave moments, isn't it? But I go back to our recent result down at Brighton, and it's a little bit different because they were playing Marseille the week after us. So and if they'd won that, they'd have won the Europa League, not the Europa League, their Europa League group, and obviously that did happen. So I believe that the reason why we got a result down at Brighton is because they were focused on that. So I'm hoping that, you know, all of your focus and all of your energy has been on that, and then we can capitalise. But like you say, I'll go back to the year we got to the semi-finals ourselves, and we actually got promoted that year because we were doing so well in the cup, and that were transferring into the league. And, you know, like you said, it can have an effect on both ways, so we'll see. You mentioned some players there. You mentioned Paulinho, Iwobi. I've also written down Willian as players to watch because these are all very good players. I had written down Raul as well, but I've crossed his name out, thankfully. So there's a nice big cross from his name, and that was satisfying. But is there anyone else who will be playing on Saturday that could hurt Burnley that we should be looking out for?
Someone I'm really excited to see, hopefully back in the starting lineup, who didn't start on Tuesday, is Tom Kearney. He's a player that we tend to play when we've got home games that we can control slightly more. So we don't play him against the big guns, and we don't really play him away from home, but he often plays these home games, and he's got such control in the middle of the park, so silky, really is able to carry the ball in such a fantastic way. So hopefully he'll be starting on Saturday for us. That's someone who I definitely keep an eye on. And generally, like throughout our team, we've got quite a few players. Up front, Wilson is really good, but he might be dropped for Willian. We're not sure. And yeah, we got a generally good front line, I'd say, at the moment. Sadly, Raul is suspended, though.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. What about Harry Wilson? Because obviously he's a player. Yeah, I know you mentioned in there he might be playing a little bit, but he's a player that Burnley fans will know quite a lot because we actually went for him and then he chose Bournemouth before he went to you, which at the time we were in the Premier League. We were like, why would you go to Bournemouth in the Championship when you could have... Anyway, but obviously, I guess you could say he chose the right career path because he ended up obviously the year after in the Premier League while we were in the Championship, and now obviously he's playing in a good Premier League side. So how's he done this season? Because I always found it a bit interesting, his type of player, because I don't think he would have suited a Dyche system, which is who we had as manager at the time, but I think he probably would be perfect for us now.
Yeah, he's great under a Silva system. He got a little bit of time to get into the season. He dyed his hair blonde and then he tied it black to brunette. And as soon as he went back to brunette, he was on fire. And he scored a really amazing goal this season. He's probably scored more than one, but the one I remember is against West Ham, where he's just so full of confidence. He tends to be brought on in the second half. Silva tends to favour starting with Willian and then taking Willian off or shuffling around the team and putting Wilson in. But yeah, he's such a wonderful player, and I think his season is really getting started now.
Yeah, he's only 26 as well, and I think by the time, another couple of years, it'll be a very, very good footballer. Obviously, already is, but get even better. Talk to me about your ambitions for the season then, because obviously I'll just get the Premier League table back up. I think, like I said earlier, you are 10th. My computer decides to go ridiculously slow when I start streaming. But you're knocking on the door anyway. You're knocking on the door of the top half. You're obviously in the semi-finals of the Carabao Cup. What do you want to achieve now, realistically, as a Fulham fan? Are you thinking top 10? Are you thinking push on for top 8 and maybe get in the Conference League? Or are you thinking, well, we're in the semi-finals of the Cup. Let's get to the European competitions by winning the trophy. What is it that you want to achieve?
So the Cup for me is absolutely the priority in terms of being able to potentially win some silverware, but even a day out at Wembley in the final would be huge for us and just amazing. So that for me is definitely the priority. In terms of the league, I think last year we finished in 10th in the top half, and that was obviously incredible. This season, I don't think it's going to happen for us. But being able to maintain some kind of stability, being able to beat the teams we should be beating, and we would love to get a Big Six scalp away from home. It hasn't happened for us yet, but that would be amazing. So, yeah, that's one of the other goals.
That's interesting. It hasn't happened yet in this Premier League stint or like in the last 10, 15 years? Because I'd see obviously you're in the Prem for a while. I think we actually relegated you one year. Apologies for that. But you were pretty much down and buried. So it's not like what Newcastle did to us the season after. Has that never happened, or is it just in this recent Premier League stint?
So since we've been promoted in 2022, we haven't taken a big scalp away from home. In the Scott Parker season in 2020, 2021, when we were in the Premier League, we beat Liverpool away from home when they were going through that dreadful run of form, but it was without fans, so it kind of doesn't count. We got close at times. Like we drew against Arsenal earlier, obviously this year, and we drew against Chelsea last year and stuff away from home. But generally, we get pretty comfortably beaten by those bigger teams.
Yeah, you're preaching to the choir there. But in the Dyche era, we actually did quite well. We actually started that Liverpool downfall. We beat them 1-0 at Anfield, again without fans.
I remember.
Ashley Barnes, legend, miss him so much. But, we've won at Old Trafford. And that's one thing that I always look at, because I feel like Fulham are a club that have come from the bottom like we did, like not that long ago, well, quite a while ago now, probably 10, 15, 20 years. Fulham was in like the ridiculous lower leagues, just like Burnley were back in 1992. And I always find it staggering that I've been to Old Trafford and watched Burnley win a match when I started following them, playing against, York and Scarborough. I like that. I like that you said that, because it means a lot to fans that, aren't in the top 8, aren't in the top 10 like traditionally. So I'm glad you've said that. I do want to ask you a question actually, and I thought about this one earlier today, because a lot of people keep comparing Burnley to Fulham of a few years ago, because we've come up. We've dominated the league below. We've spent £100 million, and this is what you did quite a few years ago. But then you were dreadful that year, and that's the year I think that we relegated you, and you went straight back down. But then since then, you've bounced back up, just gone from strength to strength to strength. Like, what is it that you did? Because, like I said, you spent £100 million, and then you went down. What did you do? Did you get rid of all your players and start afresh? You kept hold of the manager, did you? Because there's some noise that we should be getting rid of Vincent, which I completely disagree with at the minute. I think he's got at least till next season for me. But it's interesting to see or to find out how you did what you did and how you've now come back as a team that seems to be constantly knocking on the top 10, or like you said earlier, achieved it last season. So what is it that Burnley need to do to ensure that if we do go down, we bounce back, and we bounce back pretty strong?
I mean, if I had that answer, I would be the richest man in football, being able to tell people how to avoid relegation. It's a difficult one. Obviously, spending 100 million on the squad did not work for us. It meant we were super fractured. We were also not bringing in players that were particularly fitting the style of play. And I imagine what you guys are currently going through with Company is what we went through with Slavisa Jokanovic, where he was absolutely beloved. He'd done amazing things for us. And then we did get rid of him in, I think it was November 2018. And when we went back down, that at the end of the season, it was all a bit of a mess, because we had Scott Parker in charge, who did get us promoted, to be fair, not the most popular figure among Fulham fans now. did get us promoted, but it wasn't fun. It wasn't super enjoyable. It definitely wasn't like what we've been through since with under Silver. It's so difficult. I think sometimes spending a lot of money can mean that the squad can be really ungelled. I don't know if you're experiencing that this season watching Burnley.
Yeah, I do feel there's a bit of unbalance to it. I feel like we've spent more money on potential rather than actual Premier League ready players, which in 2-3 years it might be brilliant. We might sell James Trafford for 60 million quid, but at the minute he probably shouldn't be playing Premier League football if we're going to be honest with you. So there is a bit of an imbalance on that side of it.
Yeah, definitely. And something that Fulham did when we came up in 2022 was we bought quite a lot of older players, weirdly. And obviously, I don't know what that means for our squad in 2, 3, 4 years' time, but it means that we were getting in players that were improving our level at the time now. And also, I think there is just an element of luck. Like Marco Silva's system really adapted to the Premier League. He got a little bit more pragmatic when we were promoted as well. Again, I don't know whether you're experiencing the opposite with Company, but he used to always play this very attacking style of football in the Championship, and like that was so fun. But there have been moments where we've had to grind out a win, and that's been something that we've been able to add to our game.
Yeah, that's interesting because obviously we played in the Championship last year, this big brand of attacking football where we would step onto teams, force them back. Like we beat Preston 3-0 last year, and like, we barely got out of their half. Like we literally camped in their half the entire match. And obviously you can't do that in the Prem. And I do feel like Silva has probably shown there that is, probably tactically superior to Company at the minute, because that's something that we just haven't done yet with Company. We haven't been able to do that. The 2 wins that we've got this season were against Luton and Sheffield United, who in truth are like us, 2 Championship teams. All right, one of them we blew them away. One of them we kind of had to grind it out a little bit against Fulham, but I won't grind it out is probably the wrong adjective. I'd say we just kind of got a little bit fortunate because, sorry, not Fulham, Luton, because they were the better side in that second half, and then they scored, and then because they were still buzzing and stuff, we just went up the other end and ping one at top bins and then just dug deep a little bit. So yeah, I do feel like Company needs to add that. But I feel like we're on a people don't like me using the word project, so I won't use the word project. I use the word journey. I feel like we're on a journey with Company, and I feel like he's learning whilst our squad's learning, and we're down already, so I don't see the point in getting rid of him. Like, looking at the league table again, the only team that we can now realistically catch is Forest, and they've just got rid of Cooper, so they'll have this new manager bounce potentially where they might only win 2 games, but that's 6 points, and we've won 2 games all season. So I just can't see it. Everton aren't in the debate for me because obviously they should be on 26 points, which would actually put them above you and above Brighton, on level on points with Brighton and above Chelsea. So they'd be in 10th. So they're not in the conversation. Palace, maybe. But then the likes of Bournemouth, Wolves, Fulham, like yourselves, they were teams that I were looking at who have suddenly just become amazing. Brentford, I mentioned this on the Full-Time show recently. I feel like Brentford, if the teams below them were any good, could get dragged into it. But because we're all terrible, they're not going to get dragged into it. They lost 4 of the last 5. And so they should be banging trouble, but they're just not. They're just so comfortably safe. They're 10 points away from the drop zone. So, yeah, it's interesting that you say that. We'll see how Company continues to grow as a manager. But hopefully for me, Alan Pace, if you're watching, it continues to grow with Burnley as we grow as a team as well. Just looking ahead to the game then, you mentioned Jimenez is injured, suspended. Is there any other players missing that we should be aware of, happy about?
No fresh injuries as far as I'm aware. Adama Traore is still out, has been out for most of the season, but pretty much everyone else is fighting fit.
Fair enough. And what sort of system are you at? Because I've not seen Fulham play much this year. You said Silva can have an attacking style. He can have a style where he grinds out results. How are we expecting to set up against Burnley at the weekend? I presume with you being the home side and the side that's the better side in the league, the better side on paper, you'll be looking to control the game.
Yeah, 100%. Probably like a sort of 4-3-3 kind of system. We did play 5 at the back for a little bit yesterday, which was a bit fresh for us. But yeah, we'll definitely be looking to dominate that midfield battle with Polina and Kearney, hopefully, and take the game to you guys.
Interesting, because even though we were dreadful on Saturday in every aspect of the game against Everton, our midfield has probably been our better part this season with Sanderberg and Josh Brownhill in there. They started off pretty slow, but they have got better and better as the season's gone on. I do always like to get people's thoughts on Burnley, because obviously Burnley are a side that traditionally for the last 10 years have been all about, dash ball, grinding out wins, 2 banks of 4, digging in, frustrating teams, nicking something through a set piece or on a counter, and then winning games that way, frustrating teams that way. And obviously it worked so well for so long until the last 18 months of Dyche's reign, when it all went a bit south. Since then, companies come in. We've tried this open, expansive style of football. Like I said last season, fantastic season, best season ever as a Burnley fan, in my opinion. It was just so fun to win and spank teams every single week and play in that style. But obviously now in the Premier League, we're finding out that it isn't working. So what are your thoughts on Burnley and what company's trying to do at Burnley?
Obviously, I'm not a Burnley fan, so I don't know how it feels to be in the middle. If I was making the decisions, I would give company a little bit more time, but it's difficult. I think realistically, you're probably looking at 3 or 4 teams to go down this season. And should you roll the dice and try and get a manager that will haul you right out of that, or should you stay? Is your personnel good enough to mean that you actually have a really good chance at staying up? It's a difficult one. I would stick with company for now, but I would also, if he got sacked, I wouldn't be surprised, to be honest.
Yeah, that's fair enough. I've said it before, but for me, he's got enough credit in the bank for me for what he did last season. We've got a certain style of play which I don't think if a certain manager came in, this group of players would be able to adapt to. Say, for example, if we brought in Big Sam, which I've seen some ridiculous shouts on the timeline. Some people are saying, bring in Big Sam. It just wouldn't work. If you're getting Dara O'Shea to sit back in 2 banks of 4, it's going to be mistake after mistake after mistake. No offense to Dara, but he's made quite a few mistakes this season. So for me, give him till at least next season, but there's a breaking point, right? And if it carries on and we're getting beat every single week, there's going to have to be a point where it's where a change is probably needed. But at the minute, I'm still companying, and I'm hopefully going to remain that way. But Christmas, I feel, is going to be tough. Like I said, we've got you, then we've got Liverpool, then we've got Villa. I stupidly got excited when we beat Sheffield United and went and bought tickets for the Villa game. So I don't know why. I'm going to Villa away, and I'm not really sure what the plan is. I'm taking my 5-year-old boy, so he's going to be like, he's been on 2 away games already as my little boy. The quarterfinal of the FA Cup last season, Manchester City 6, Burnley 0. Brentford earlier this season, Brentford 3, Burnley 0. So he's already seen 9 goals in 2 away games, but not one of them is a Burnley goal. Finally, then, just before we start wrapping everything up, do you want to give me your prediction for this weekend then in terms of score, please?
Yeah, I'm going to go for a comfortable Fulham win, I'm afraid. I think maybe 3-0. But anything can happen.
I'm going to say 3-1. So it's like people always get a bit apprehensive, like, I'm on a Burnley channel saying, but Burnley are going to get spanked. But at the minute, even Burnley fans think that they're going to get spanked. So it's completely fine. I think we could potentially score with Lyle back. I'd be making 4 changes to the side that started at the weekend. I'd be having Ekdal in. I'd be having Charlie Taylor back in, so we will be stronger in that aspect if we do that, in my opinion. I'll obviously be having Foster back because he started. He didn't start against Everton, sorry, he came off the bench, so he's better. So hopefully play him. And Manuel Benson, because when he was running at defenders on Saturday, that was the only time we actually looked like we were getting up the pitch. And then keep Wilson Odebear in there as well, because obviously Koleosho's injured. So for me, if we start the right team, I think we can get at you and maybe score, but I just think eventually you'll turn the screw and you'll beat us. But Elizabeth, thank you for coming on the show. It's been an absolute pleasure. Just before we do end the stream and the podcast, do you want to let everyone know where they can find you and find the Fulham content that you help out on?
Yeah, so my Twitter is @ESBarnard_. And I am part of the Fulhamish team, and that's @FulhamishPod.
Yeah, thank you very much. So thank you everybody for watching. Thank you for listening. We'll see you next time. Obviously, it's a busy moment coming up. As you all know, I have a little boy, so Christmas is very busy. I work in sports broadcasting, so Christmas is very busy at work. So I'm not sure how many full-time shows we'll get to do, or if I'll even get to do a pre-game show for the Liverpool game. I am talking to a Liverpool fan now about doing one before we even play Fulham. So we'll see, because after the Fulham game, it's obviously Christmas Eve, then it's Christmas Day, then it's a Liverpool match, so it's going to be busy. So just keep it up to date on Twitter. I'll put stuff out as and when we do. We'll probably get the fan reactions in for the Fulham game, even though I am working, because it's at Joshua Fight on Saturday night, isn't it? Yeah, some of the lads will be helping out with that. But Elizabeth, thanks for coming on. It's been a pleasure. Thanks everyone for watching. Thanks everyone for listening, and we will see you all next time.